from sea to shining sea throughout the solar system, and extending to interstellar regions beyond. This is the Kevin Smith Show. Talk radio like nowhere else on Earth.
Comments and views expressed on The Kevin Smith Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the views of Kevin Smith, The Kevin Smith Show, or its affiliates or sponsors.
Hi folks, welcome to the show, whoever you are, wherever you happen to be, all around this beautiful planet. Thanks for being here at the Kevin Smith Show. I'm here because you have a right to know and because you matter. Because you matter, we do respond, to emails. Now, I can't reply to all of them. I do reply to a great many of the emails that come in. It's physically impossible, not enough time for me to reply to all of them, but I read them, and we do respond. And after last night's show, we had several emails that came in that one of them from a professor at a very, very prestigious university, like probably one of the most prestigious universities. Thanking Robert Morningstar and I for discussing what we discussed about Titan and for the comments that we made about the evidence that certainly does not preclude that there is life on Titan, and really actually kind of points to that there is life on Titan, biology. But we had a number of emails that came in, and, along the same vein. And, of course, quite naturally, a number of emails that came in that thought we were nuts for even considering that you could have life where you have temperatures of minus 290 degrees. And, but we have spacecraft that go out into space where the temperatures are that cold and colder, and come back, and they're contaminated by Earth bacteria. They come back, and the bacteria is still alive on the outside of the spacecraft. It survived the trip. So certainly it can you can have life in those environments. Now, I'm going to do something in response to those. I'm going to go a step further. It's a step I've taken before. And some of what we have looked at, what we are going to look at tonight and discuss tonight, I discussed back in 2005. I looked it up to see when this broadcast happened originally about Titan. It was in 2005, and some of you were around then and will remember, and some of you were not. A great many of you were not. And so I'm going to show you some evidence and talk to you about some evidence tonight. And this goes beyond, is there microbial life on Titan? Because we're actually going to be talking about some evidence that seems to indicate pretty strongly that there's complex life on Titan. Maybe I'm crazy, but then again, I never said I wasn't. If you are not yet a member at the Kevin Smith Show, you need to click that join button and join tonight. Nobody but you can fix it if you're not a member, and if you're not a member, you're missing such things as our forums. If you're not a member, you don't get to watch the show every night. You won't get to see this one. And that sometimes is important, as it will be tonight. And, if you're a member, you get the archives as well, and the video galaxy, lots of good stuff. All right, we're going to step away for a break, and when we come back from this break, we'll jump off into Titan. All of the music used here at the Kevin Smith Show is from independent artists. Most of it from independent artists at musicalley.com. Go over to musicalley.com. Check out thousands of artists and thousands of great independent tunes. musicalley.com.
But what would you say if I told you when we're alone? It feels like I'm a haze on my coaster. It strikes me funny all the while. Years of building my backbone, blown apart by your smile. What would you say if I told you when we're alone? It feels like I'm in a haze on my car stereo. In my mind, when I clown and tease you, your look of shock gets me perfectly high. You won't see it coming.
Welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show. And our discussion this evening of, is there life on Titan? Is there any evidence of life on Titan? Now, last night, Robert Morningstar told us about declassified documents that it's a report from a group of astronomers whom the CIA employed, Dr. Menzel being one of them, to track some very large extraterrestrial craft that were in orbit around Earth back in the 1940s. this may sound and it may seem to you to be science fictional, but the report, these are declassified documents, and the report from those astronomers was that these craft were coming from and going back to Titan, so they either originated on Titan or they have a base there. Maybe they originate somewhere else, but they have a base on Titan. Titan is one of the moons of Saturn, and it's a sizable, it's a planet-sized moon, as is our moon. Our moon is big enough to be a small planet. It's not a planet, but it's big enough that it could be a small planet. Titan is big enough that it can be a small planet. And Titan is the first moon of Saturn that we humans have landed anything on. Back in 2005, January of 2005, the Cassini spacecraft dumped off a probe called Huygens, and Huygens headed on its way then down to the surface of Titan. And as it descended, it was taking photographs. After it landed, it took photographs, and it took photographs from the surface of Titan until I guess its batteries went dead. And then Cassini spacecraft, which is still working around Saturn, has been past Titan and close to Titan several times on its mission, has taken lots of photographs, like the one that those who are watching are seeing. That is a picture of Titan taken by Cassini. And it's done spectral analysis of the atmosphere and the surface, and it's done, infrared scans and all kinds of scientific scans and things like that. So we, on the one hand, don't know a great deal about Titan. On the other hand, we do. We know a great deal more than we did, but a lot of it just causes you to have more questions. And so there's a great deal more to be learned. We heard from Robert Morningstar last night about these documents. And I briefly mentioned and showed a few pictures, but I briefly mentioned that, there are structures on Titan that don't appear to be natural. So we're going to actually take a look at some of those tonight, and we're going to be using photographs that are the raw photographs that the Huygens probe sent back. Now, these are photographs that were taken as it was descending, but they are, when I say they are the raw photographs, they are, but, it takes them in strips. And these strips have been pieced together to make a panorama. But it's the raw photographs pieced together to make a panorama. And we're going to take a look at some very interesting things. And then I want to get you involved here. I'd like to hear from you what you think about what I am going to be showing you. And once again, if you are a member, then you do get to see the show each night. About 3 times a month, we have a free-to-watch night. But look, for 25 cents a day, 25 cents, 1/4, 25 cents a day, you could be seeing the show every night, getting the archives, getting the forums and the chat room and your own blog and your own photo album and your own video album and the video galaxy of videos to watch and other stuff. You could be getting that, and nobody but you can fix it if you're not yet a member, so be sure you join. We need you, but you need what's in that members community as well. All right, so let's jump to this first panoramic view. And this is a view that I think just about everybody has seen. And everybody kind of goes, oh, wow, that's cool. But I want you to let your eyes wander across this. This is a panoramic view of a shoreline. And this shoreline terminates at a sea. Now, the scientists tell us that sea is full of liquid methane, and perhaps that is correct. I have no reason to doubt that. I would like for you, as you gaze upon this shoreline, it's black and white, but what's the most prominent thing that you notice here? Well, that for each individual there would be a different answer. For me, the most prominent thing I notice is all those pockets of mist coming up from the ground, vapor of some kind coming up from the ground all over the place. I would think it was clouds, except I can see, especially on the left side of this photograph, how it goes all the way down to the surface. And so, and it's thicker at the surface. So it appears that it is originating at the surface. That may not be the case, but it certainly appears that way. And there are these places where all over that horizon, all over the landscape, where you've got this vapor coming up. And yet the picture is not foggy. The picture is pretty clear. Do you notice anything else? Well, it's a little bit hard to notice anything else in particular because it is taken from a great height and it's an aerial photograph, and so small details are hard to notice. Even large details are hard to notice, although I think your eye is probably noticing a few things where you say, well, I wonder what that is. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you the source of these pictures. They come from the ESA, NASA, JPL, University of Arizona. They're stitched together because that's that long list there, ESA, NASA, JPL, University of Arizona, is who was involved in running the Huygens mission. And so they are all kind of joint owners of the photographs. And this was stitched together into a panorama by Rene Pascal, February the 8th, 2005. So about a month after these pictures were taken. And the next thing that I want to show you is some of the details that you don't see until you zoom in. And the first one is over on the left side of the picture, kind of in a dark area. And what we see is a structure on the ground in the shape of a cross. That's not so much what interested me because you can have nature producing those, can happen. But this mist is coming up right out of the center of the thing. There's a pillar of vapor coming right up out of the center of that cross. Again, that might be something natural. I don't know. Now, we're going to look at some things that seem decidedly unnatural. For instance, and as I have zoomed in, but I'm going to zoom back out, keep your eye on that structure so you'll see where it is in the panorama. See where that is? Now that I zoomed in, you can see that without me zooming it in. Now, what we're looking at looks like a great, huge pipe that comes from the left side of the picture, kind of curves and comes from the left side of the picture and goes into sort of a bigger terminal kind of a pipe, kind of like maybe a big valve of some kind. And then another pipe that comes out of that big terminal and heads toward the bottom of the picture. So we have a 90-degree there with the pipe. That doesn't, to me, look like something nature does. It might be, but it doesn't look to me like something natural. That looks to me like construction. But then the question is, well, all right, let's take a look. You see that big valve casing. I'm saying it's a valve casing. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a toadstool. But whatever it is, it looks like a big valve casing where the two pipes go into it. But look on the right side of it. We can see it looks like some construction on the right side, so that perhaps there's a pipe coming out of the right side, but is underground, goes right underground. So I cast my eye to the right to see, is there any place where we might see this pipe in case there is a pipe? And lo and behold, there is. Way over on the right side of the coastline, and I'll zoom out in a moment so you can see where it is. Way over on the right side, there's a place where there is a huge pipe exposed. And it actually looks like it's curving down toward the sea. Now, I'm going to go back to the left. We see something is coming out of that casing on the right of it. We follow that to the right, and we find over there a big piece of pipe exposed. Now, again, maybe these are not pipes. Maybe these are methane-based tree roots. Or who knows? Could be Chinese wedding candles. But it looks like pipe, and they are massive. Now, the way I can say they are massive is because when I zoom out, compare their size with the total picture. They are massive enough that even zoomed out, now that I've pointed them out to you, you can see them. Even zoomed out. They are bigger than most other things in that picture. And this is a picture of, probably, 2 or 3 miles of coastline here. So these are sizable objects, very sizable objects. Now, I do have some more things that I'm going to share with you, but I want to just talk with you for a moment about whether or not you think these things are artificial, or do you think these things are constructed. If I were to show you that picture and not tell you that it's on Titan, one of the moons of Saturn, where the temperature is minus 290 degrees, and where the atmosphere is mostly methane, if I just showed you the picture as an aerial photograph, I think you would say those are pipes. That's some kind of huge valve and pipe system. And don't know what it is, but it's got to be moving a heck of a lot of water. And you would assume it was water because I didn't tell you it was Titan. I don't think you would have any problem whatsoever. But whenever we say that it's on Titan, or if we say it's on Mars, or it's on Mercury, or it's on Venus, or one of the other planets or moons, immediately you say, well, no, your mind goes, it can't be. It's got to be natural. It's just a freak of nature. But if you thought it was on Earth, you wouldn't say that. If you thought that was Earth, your eye and your mind would tell you those are pipes, and that is construction, and that is some coastline, and that big pipe is curving off down into the sea, so it's some kind of drainage into the sea. Or maybe it's an intake taking water from the sea and putting it into this pipe system. That is tantamount to racism. It isn't racism, so I'm just saying it's very similar. If you did that to people, it would be racism. And let me show you why. Have you ever heard white men can't jump? Larry Bird could. If you say about any race of people, and I picked white men can't jump since I'm white, so nobody can accuse me of being racist here. But we've all heard it. Listen, when I was a deputy sheriff, way back at the beginning of my career, I had some dealings with KKK people. And some face-to-face dealings. I know what kinds of things they say and what kinds of things they believe up close and personal. And they will say about any race that is not a white race, well, they'll say, well, you know, they can't think like we think. And they're talking about they can't think like white people. And they imply and sometimes say that people who are not white are not capable of high-level, high-quality thinking. I'm not saying that. I'm telling you what some of the KKK beliefs and statements have been over the years, and you know this. And we also know that's not true, don't we? Do you know how many KKK people there are that eat peanut butter? Are you aware of the fact that peanut butter was invented by a black man? And, you know, while they mouth all that stuff about black people, they go over to the picnic table and slap down some peanut butter and jelly, and they're eating a sandwich they could not eat without a black scientist, George Washington Carver. If we did this kind of thing to people, it's called racism. All right, we're going to take a break, and I'll pick up that theme when we come back.
My mistake has been haunting me for so long, and I know now that I have been wrong. So much time I've been wasting thinking I could just stay the same. So I try to get back to a better state of life, when all I can do is have faith in the voice I can hear inside, guiding me on my way. Now I know better than to keep on
name is Kelly, and I'm calling from Florida, and you are listening to The Kevin Smith Show. Talk radio like nowhere else on earth, healing medicine for the mind.
You don't know why.
All right, welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show. Now, this is not a show about racism. I'm using racism as an example because I showed some photographs from Titan that show some structures. And what I said was, if I didn't tell you that that's not Earth, you would have said, well, that's some big pipes and some kind of drainage system or intake system. And, it's right on a shoreline, and, these pipes go in, look like they go into the sea. And if I didn't tell you that it's not Earth, you would, and you just assumed that you're looking at a black and white photograph, aerial photograph taken here on Earth. Your mind would have told you those are artificial structures. They are man-made structures. But because then I tell you it's on Titan, your mind says, oh, well, then it can't be. It must be Chinese wedding lamps. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm being facetious, but I mean, that's exactly how this works. And the scientists that did the report that Robert Morningstar read to us last night did exactly that. What they did in their report, they said, this suggests, that perhaps there's some type of exotic methanogenic, methane-based life that is ingesting hydrogen. But then, because it's on Titan and it's minus 290 degrees, we have to look, scientific conservatism says we must look for all other explanations. And the biological explanation would be the last that we look at. So they totally poo-poo the idea. Why? Because it's on Titan and the conditions are not like they are on the surface of the Earth. And what I said was, if you did that to people, you would be a racist. Because it would go like this. Well, that's impressive work. And it was written by whom? And he's what color? Well, there must be a major flaw in this. We'll have to check it out. That's racist. If you did the same thing to people that scientists do to the evidence for life on other heavenly bodies, if you did the same thing to people, that's racism. Now, I want to give you something else to think about. So I guess the scientists are like scientific racist, the ones that say that sort of stuff. Let me give you something else to think about. We talk about life here on Earth. Do you know we only really are talking about us? We talk about everything that lives in our little narrow band of the biosphere. When we talk about we're looking for life, we're looking then for what? Earth-like planets? Well, now, wait a minute. Right here on this planet, there's a whole bunch of life that doesn't live in this little band of biosphere that you and I live in. We require oxygen, we require nitrogen, we require trace elements of trace amounts of hydrogen and some other gases, some other elements. And we require that because we developed out here on the surface of the earth. We developed out here where those things exist. Our development was dependent upon what existed right here in this little narrow band. But way down beneath the surface, in pools of hydrocarbon, ladies and gentlemen, exist organisms that developed in that biosphere. And they are allergic to oxygen. If you expose them to our biosphere, they die. Now, who's Earth-like, them or us? Well, both of us. But they exist in a biosphere much more like Titan than our biosphere that we exist in. But who's Earth-like, us or them? Way down at the bottom of the ocean, near these volcanic vents, you have scorching hot sulfuric acid dumping right up out of those vents into the ocean. And living right there are life forms that thrive on that sulfuric acid in the water. You can't live there. But that's on this planet. So let me ask you, what's more Earth-like, you or them? I'll tell you what, they'll still be living when you and I are gone. They were living before us, they'll still be living after us. What's more Earth-like, us or them? And so you see, it is the height of arrogance, and really the height, the depth, not the height, it's the depth of stupidity and the height of arrogance. To say that when we go out looking for life out there in the solar system and in the universe, that we're looking, we have to look for Earth-like planets. Why? And when we talk about Earth-like, we're talking about that on their surface, they have a biosphere, something like ours on this surface of this planet. Now, why would we go looking for life only in that narrow biosphere? You know, that means we're looking for us. Well, we're not out there, we're here. Life, on the other hand, exists in many different environments, many different biospheres and ecologies right here on this planet in circumstances you can't live in. But they do. If they do it on this planet, what makes you suspect it's not being done on other planets? Now, again, I want to go back to the statement that I made earlier. If I showed you that picture, and I showed, without telling you that it's Titan, and I just said, here's an aerial photograph, kind of zoom in on this and tell me what you see. You would zoom in, you'd say, well, there's one hellaciously big pipe system right there. And it looks like it extends all the way over here to this other side of the coastline over here, and then curves down into the ocean or the sea. You would have called it pipes. You would have said it was pipes. But the instant I tell you it's on Titan, your mind wants to tell you, well, then it couldn't be. And my mind says, why not? Why not? Do you not think that it is possible for complex life to have developed in that biosphere there, using the materials that are present there, just as we developed here, using the materials that were available here at the surface? Why couldn't that happen there with different materials? So now let me ask you, I know a few of you are architects, but not all of you. You certainly don't have to be an architect to understand this or to answer this question. Have you ever seen a home, a house, made of logs? Sure you have. Have you ever seen a house made of bricks? Sure you have. Have you ever seen one made of ice? Well, of course you have. The igloos? Sure, you've seen houses made of ice. These days, because of transportation and manufacturing, people make their homes out of all different kinds of things based on their personal taste. But prior to these days of great ease of transportation, homes were built with whatever materials were present. Now, across the prairies in Texas, across the prairie lands, not just in Texas, but across all the prairie lands in the United States, one of the building materials that was used way back in the 1800s up through the early 1900s was buffalo or cattle dung. Because that's all that was. There were no trees. There's no ice to cut blocks and build an igloo. No trees. Nothing to make bricks out of. But there was a lot of buffalo and cattle dung. And they would let it dry. And once it dried, they could use it as building material, and they did. And they built it. How would you like to live? That'd be kind of a crappy house, wouldn't it? But they did. They built their houses out of what was available. People who live in forested areas would build their houses out of lumber. People who lived, for instance, out in the desert, out in Arizona, just beneath a very thin layer of sand, there is a layer called caliche, and it is clay, but it's hard as concrete. And they would chop out and cut out bricks of caliche, and they would build houses out of that. Some of the ancient native peoples used that. Some of them used adobe, which again is kind of similar to that, but they would get the clay wet and kind of make it all one piece, you know. What has that got to do with Titan? It has to do with Titan this. Life builds out of what is available in the neighborhood. And just like you build homes out of what's available in the environs around where you're building, life builds organisms, and they develop out of the materials that are available locally. And on Titan, what's available is methane, acetylene, hydrogen, benzene. That's what's available. So why do you think, just because you would die there almost instantly, you didn't develop there? You developed here. Why do you think there could not be complex life that has developed there using the building blocks available to it there? Somehow, some way, something or someone built a huge pipe system. We can even see the end, the open end of one of these pipes in this picture. It is open. Somebody did it. We'll be back right after this break. All right, welcome back. And those who are watching, you didn't get any music during that break. Sorry about that. I pushed the button, but I didn't check to make sure that it stayed depressed. And it didn't. All right, we're talking about Titan, and I've been talking about the fact that it is absolutely logically untenable to say that there cannot be life on Titan because of the conditions there. It's logically untenable to say there cannot be complex life. And I've shown pictures and talked about pictures that if I showed them to you without telling you that it was not Earth, I just let you assume, I'm not going to tell you it's Earth, but just let you assume, you would look at those things and say, well, it's one hellaciously large pipe system of some kind. And then when we say, well, that's on Titan, well, you know, there must be some other explanation. Why? It's a pipe system. I don't know who built it. I don't know when it was built. I don't know what it was built for. That's pipes. Now, can nature on Titan build pipes? Well, I'm not on Titan, so maybe nature manufactures pipes on Titan. I don't know. I don't suspect nature manufactures pipes and assembles it into a system like that. And I certainly don't suspect that nature does anything like what I'm about to show and talk about. This is show and tell. Remember show and tell back when you were in school? Well, this is show and tell night. So here we go. In the right side, the lower right side of this picture, are a couple of truly amazing things. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to brighten this. Up till now, we've been looking at the picture pretty much, well, we've been looking at the picture as it's presented on their website. So I'm going to brighten this up because that lower right-hand corner is very dark. So let's just brighten this up a little bit. So now I've brightened it up actually quite a lot, and we lose a lot of the detail up on land. However, you can still see where those pipes are. But now let's zoom to the lower right-hand side over here. And let me back that off and zoom so you can see where it is. Okay, here we go. We're going to zoom in on that. Now, the way I discovered this attitude about, well, if it's on another planet, then people assume it cannot be what their eyes and mind tell them it is, was this picture right here. This is the way I discovered it. Because back in 2005, I was living in the Phoenix area, and as a matter of fact, living in Phoenix. And a couple of my friends were commercial airline pilots, and separately, I showed them this, and I didn't tell them where it was. I just did a zoom in on it, just like I've done here. And I said, you're used to looking at things from the air. What is that? He said, that's an airstrip. That's a landing strip. And there's your tower right there. Now, the tower, as he described it, for those who are looking, those who are watching, you can see a sort of spherical, or maybe it's cylindrical, shape right in the center of this strip of land or concrete or something that goes right out into the sea. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at what could be called a peninsula, but it looks artificial, totally artificial. And that sphere, or that shape that's right there in the center, in the middle, that's what he said, there's your control tower. And that's a landing strip. And he said, that's a big one. I said, are you sure? And he said, man, I get paid to know what I'm looking at on the ground. And when you fly a commercial airline, you better be able to spot the airstrips in case you need to set down. He said, that is an airstrip. And then I told him it was on Titan. And he just sort of looked like, you got to be kidding me. Both of them identified that as an airstrip, and both of them identified the tower. Is it an airstrip? Well, I don't know. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. I don't know if that's an airstrip, but I do know that does not look like nature to me. It is, when we zoom in, it gets a little bit fuzzy because again, this is an aerial photograph and we're zoomed in quite a lot here, and it gets a little bit fuzzy. It does look like construction to me. Maybe not to you. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe to you this doesn't look like construction. I tell you what, before I talked with the pilot, the two pilots, I said, that kind of resembles a specialized gun barrel. So, maybe when we say, I'm a cop, so I was hanging around guns a lot. It was a tool of the trade. And they were airline pilots. Maybe we see something and it looks to us like something we're accustomed to. Except that when he said that is a landing strip, and he pointed, he said, look, you've even got a turnaround on the left side. You've got a semicircle turnaround down there on the left side. So the plane comes in and lands, taxis down there, turns around, and comes back. Okay, I can see that. Once he pointed it out, I can see that. Is it an airstrip? Well, look, I don't know. I don't know if that's an airstrip. What I do know is that it looks like one, and that's all I can say. So when we talk about these things, we're not saying this, folks, is precisely what it is. What we're saying is that's what that looks like. It does not look natural. It looks constructed to me. Now, maybe you think it looks natural. All right. There is yet one other thing, and then I'm going to open up the phone lines. But I would call your attention to the fact that off the end of that runway, if you want to call it that, to the right of it, there is an island. And so what we're going to do is kind of take a look at that island, okay? There it is. We can see the end of that runway to the left, and we can see there is an island out there in that sea of methane, as far as we know. But I want you to notice it looks like that there are streams of vapor coming up off the left side of that and off of the middle of that island. So we're going to zoom in just a little bit and see if it retains that appearance. And I say it does. To me, that's a vapor cloud coming off of the end of that island, the left side of that island. But what's on this island? Well, some pretty interesting stuff. Let's take a close-up. Now we're looking at the center, the middle of that island, and then all the way to the right side. It's an odd-shaped island. Actually, the shape of it doesn't itself appear normal and natural. It appears manufactured. But it's more than just the shape of the island that's of interest here. Look what's on it. Now, I'm going to point out some things that to me look extremely artificial. Look at the lower right corner. And there's a yellow arrow above what very much looks like a building. You take the arrows away, and you can see entrances, windows, shape of a building. Let me put the arrows back up, and let's go to the upper right corner. And in the upper right corner of this picture is another one of these very large pipe structures. It goes off the edge of that island and into the sea, apparently. But it comes, we'll say it comes from the sea up onto this island, comes at an angle, and then makes a 90-degree turn down into a larger structure. We'll talk about some more of what's in this picture when we come back.
larger the town, the lonelier the place. Crisscrossing roads match the lines on my face. People move slowly like tears down a cheek, searching in vain for the love that they seek. I was like them, I think you were too, under a sky colored darkest blue, feeling so cold as the night closes in, longing for warmth of a lover's skin. I look younger by moonlight than I do in the sun. My face tells a story, how my life was run. Emotions within me have faded to gray. My heart feels a torment that my smile betrays. But just when I thought that my future had passed and all of my chances had burned down to ash, the vision of you gently cradled my eyes. You caused a fire in my soul to arise. One night you looked lonely and I felt the same. You gathered the courage to ask me my name. We danced to the music of love in our heads. A tide rose within me, and that when I said, I look younger by moonlight than I do in the sun. My face tells a story, how my life was run. All of my life I have been waiting for you. My heart feels the warmth of a love overdue. A tree stands alone on a dark winter's night, listening for winds you don't know why.
Welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show, and for those of you joining us just now in this second hour, welcome aboard. We're delighted you're here. My sincere sympathy to you for whatever it is that kept you away from that first hour, and my most sincere hopes, wishes, and prayers that you never suffer that tragedy again. We're talking about Titan, and we're talking about the actual photographic evidence from the ESA, NASA, JPL, and the University of Arizona. From the Huygens probe that landed on Titan, the actual photographic evidence, photos they took, that seemed to indicate somebody with complex life and complex abilities either is there or has been there. And if you're just now joining us, you may think, well, that's nuts. Well, you see, as I said, you have my sincere sympathy for missing the first hour. All right, we're going to go back to this island in the picture. I want to point out some things that look to me to be very artificial. One of the things is in the lower right corner, there's a building. In the upper right corner, there's a gigantic pipe coming from seaward up onto the island, making a 90-degree turn down into what looks like a larger pipe complex. Over in the center of this picture, there is what at first, if you're not careful, you might think, well, that's a step pyramid. But it's not. Actually, it appears to be several large pipes and walls, as though perhaps it's some sort of cooling area, or maybe a heating area. I don't know. Now, the reason I say maybe that's where they're heating some of the fluid is because when we zoom out, you can see what looks like steam coming off the left side of this island. And when we zoom in on that area, there seems to be some sort of a structure there. Can't really make it out, but a cloud of steam or vapor coming out of it. All over this thing, it looks like there are artificial structures. All over it. Now, maybe to you, it all looks natural. Maybe to you, I sound as though I have gone around the corner and I'll never be back. That's possible. But a few years ago, when they first started talking about the possibility of panspermia, the people that were talking about it were thought of by the great apes of science as being people that went around the corner and they'll never be back. And now the great apes are coming around to saying, well, you know what? The organics are just raining down on planets. Well, you know what that is? Panspermia. So, anyway, I would like for you to join this conversation, and maybe you see things in these pictures that I have not seen. Maybe you have a different opinion about what we're looking at in these pictures. So the telephone lines are open. And let's talk about this. Even if you think that you haven't seen anything in these pictures that's artificial, we want to hear that. We want to hear from you what you think about this. All right? Caller, you're live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Kevin, this is Jerome from Pennsylvania.
Hello, Jerome.
Hi. Looking on the picture, whether it's pipes or whatever it is, like you said, you don't know for sure, and I don't know, but it does look manufactured.
Well, let me ask you this. If you did not know that this was on Titan, if you thought this was on Earth, would you say those are pipes?
You know what? I live on in a river town, on the banks of a river, and they show different pictures and stuff from the air, and there's chemical plants and everything else, and those look like plants, like an industrial plant.
Uh-huh.
Now, I see what you're saying is the pipe, and, you know, to me that looked like, and I know it's, well, I can't say I know it's not, but they had a super gun in the Mideast. I think it was Iraq. They were building a super gun,
uh-huh.
and they showed this pipe that was for firing, regular cannon shot.
Yeah.
And then that's the first thing I saw there. I didn't really make your coordination between the pipe coming over to the right side, which you're showing now.
Well, if you'll look at what's on the screen, we have two pipes that meet at a big casing that's sticking up out of the ground.
Yep.
The right side of that casing has some kind of construction going to the right. You see that?
I see that, yeah.
And I said, so is it possible that you have a pipe that's lower in the ground that extends to the right? And so when I look to the right, do I find a pipe anywhere? Straight across on the right, I do.
I see that, but if you pan over to the right, yes. There, where you got the arrow, if you go to the right of it, there's a dark spot.
Yeah.
Are you saying that that's the exit of the pipe? Or?
No. This is simply a section of the pipe that is exposed where that yellow arrow is pointing. It's simply exposed. The ground has eroded away from there. But the point is that it is to the right of, oops, I gave you the wrong picture here. It is to the right of the construction where we have two pipes meeting in a big casing and some kind of construction to the right side of that casing, indicating, why would you put a structure there? Well, because you've got something there. So what's there? What's to the right? I look to the right. What I find to the right is the ground is eroded away, and there is a pipe same size as the ones we're looking at back over there at that big casing.
I see your connection. I mean, it's not that I see your connection. It just looks like there's a little difference in the pipe.
Well, there may be. It may be an intake, or it may be we have two pipes that are dumping stuff into that casing, and now you got the volume of two pipes that need to exit. And so you have a bigger pipe for the exit.
Are there any thermo pictures or infrared pictures?
Not that have been released to us.
Well, either way, no matter what it is, like I said, it looks to me like a manufacturing plant. And the islands, and I was listening the other night when you first mentioned about the airplane pilots saying that looks like a airstrip.
Yeah, well, actually, I first mentioned that in 2005. These pictures were taken in January. They were released, I believe, in February, and the next day after they were released is when I went on the air with that. So that's not new. I've been talking about that, or I did talk about that back then for a while. But I haven't done much with Titan because we haven't gotten any new information. No new pictures, and we're not going to get new pictures because these pictures were taken by a probe that landed on Titan and then died. Okay, so there's not anything there to take pictures. This is what we've got. And, but it does look like we're looking down on possibly an airstrip of some kind. I can even see the circular turnaround over on the left side.
Yeah, I can see that also. And I understand your argument about saying that the racist argument, because obviously this is not carbon-based life in those conditions, but that does not mean it's not life.
Well, it's not oxygen-based. It may be carbon-based, but it's not oxygen-based.
Well, I meant as far as us Earthlings are carbon-based.
Well, you can have, carbon and hydrocarbons are very closely related. So you can have carbon-based life that breathes methane and carbon-based life that breathes oxygen. Oxygen is one of the most corrosive elements there is. But we live on it.
No matter what you call it, it is manufactured.
You think?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, it sure looks like it. To me, it does.
Okay, Kevin.
All right, thanks for the call, man.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
623-444-5889. 623-444-5889. That's the number to call to join this conversation. And look, I know you have some opinions about this, and we want to hear those opinions. I know you have some thoughts about this. This may be something totally, completely new to you. You weren't around the Kevin Smith Show in 2005, maybe, so you didn't catch the shows where we talked about this stuff before. Actually, in 2005, I didn't get into this stuff about what's on this island. In 2005, I dealt only with that airstrip and with the shoreline and with those pipes. So this is, for everybody at the Kevin Smith Show, this stuff about the island, this is new. But maybe you're looking at this, and for the very first time in your life, you're having one of those, oh my God moments. Well, we want to hear about that too. You can call the telephone number, 623-444-5889, or if you're outside of the USA and you're outside of Canada, you can call the number or you can use the flash message. But you must be outside the USA and Canada to use the flash message feature on my website. Just go over to the website, you'll see it. Caller, you're live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Hello, Kevin. This is Mike from Kentucky.
Hello, Mike.
This picture you have up now, basically that looks like FEMA trailers to me.
You're talking about the one I've got up now? Is
the
this
one with a little white mist that you were talking about?
Oh, yeah. You see that white mist coming up off the ground all over the place?
I do. But go back to the last photograph you had up.
Oh, I think the last one I had up was the island, wasn't it?
Think so, yes.
Okay.
And it had the white on it, and you had the yellow arrows pointing down to
there you go.
What looked like buildings and entrances. Yeah, right. But if you look at the little white things, kind of look like FEMA trailers. So I think maybe it's FEMA's on there trying to mess around.
Well, if FEMA is there, they have had to develop one heck of a artificial environment for those people.
Yeah, I know. But you look in that, you see what looks like windows.
Yeah.
You look like a door in the second one there. And it almost looks like one of those kind that you drive around, like a truck front end on it. So.
Well, down here in this lower right-hand corner, the buildings appear to be domed.
Yep. But, they could also be bus-shaped because they're long and rectangular and they're rounded on the tops.
Yeah. It could be. But I have to tell you, I kind of doubt it's FEMA, simply because of all that methane up there, and we're not built for breathing methane.
Well, another thing, too, the landing strip.
Yeah.
Go back to that, if you would, for a minute.
Right.
Now, I have one of these minds that just sees things totally different.
Yeah, you do.
Think it's so, but it sees it that way. That looks like in one respect, it looks like a telescope, a collapsible telescope, a small end on the right. And then in another respect, it almost looks like it's got some kind of wheels or something under it, like it's one of the tunnel boring machines.
Like it's, tunnel boring. Yeah, well, now, maybe, where do you see wheels?
Well, if you look toward from the middle, there's a white dot in it, like a reflection, and then you go back about an inch and come straight down, and there's some kind of a shadowy effect on the bottom. And then toward the back as well. So
maybe what you're saying is maybe that's a tunnel boring machine that's either... Well, you know what? Looking at it as you've described, the left side over there does kind of resemble one of those big tunnel boring drill bits.
Yep.
Yeah, it does. Wow.
But it's just conjecture on our part. We both know it. We can't see it exactly enough, close enough to really tell.
No, we can't. But you know what we can do? We can look at that and we can say, that doesn't look natural.
That's exactly right.
You know, I don't know what these things are, but it doesn't look natural. And maybe it is a tunnel
boring machine. Mm-hmm. It's a very large one.
Yes, it is. I would suggest, I haven't done any measurements on this, and somebody that is, well, that's the wrong picture here. Somebody that is, really qualified to make measurements, I would suggest that thing must be at least half a mile long.
Or maybe even larger.
Maybe, yeah.
Because if you thought at first it was a landing strip, it would have had to have been about that long or longer.
Uh-huh. Well, and you know, the pilot, the first pilot, who just absolutely, he said, that's a landing strip. You know, I get paid to see these things from the air. That's a landing strip. Of course, he didn't know it was on Titan at the time.
Right.
But when he said that, he said that was about a half a mile long.
Inside of the screen, where it's that bright on top, and you come to the right, it has a step down.
Yeah.
And it goes a little further and has another step down, and it comes to the end, and it gets larger like a knob on the end of it.
Uh-huh. It does.
Or it looks that way anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. So maybe this is what's boring the tunnels for the pipes.
Impression.
Maybe this is what's boring the tunnels for the pipes.
Could be.
Yeah. Who knows? But it's big, whatever it is. It's very, very large.
It is. It looks like it has openings in it.
Yeah, it does.
So I would think it would be more something like that than a runway.
It might be. It might be. But now, let's go back to the island for a minute.
Yeah.
Does that look like steam or vapor of some kind coming off that left end of the island?
When you show from a distance, I see what looks like a foggy vapor. But then as you zoom in, that's when I begin to see structure instead of just clouds.
I still see the vapor rising up into the air above it.
Especially over on the left-hand side.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there is some kind of structure there where the vapor's coming from.
And that smoke coming up.
Yeah, there's some kind of structure, and it looks like spherical almost, but there is that vapor rising from it at an angle up to the right. And I don't know what that vapor is, but
and you know, if you look too over on the left in that vapor, there looks like there's some kind of a horizontal bar, black horizontal bar, and I don't know what it is.
I don't see a black horizontal bar.
Well, zoom back in.
It's zoomed.
Now, you can see it better than I can, but to the far left there in the vapor itself, it looks like there's a horizontal black lines, and then at the end of the vapor there's a black line that's vertical.
Well, I see the black line that's vertical. Those are all vertical posts.
Yeah.
Instead of it being a horizontal line, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 horizontal
I was thinking
dark posts.
To me, like it could be the top of like what we would see in a cross shape or a telephone pole shape. Then the rest of the bottom be obscured by the clouds or the vapor.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's weird, though, isn't it?
It is.
Did you expect to see something like that on Titan?
No. But remember in the movie 2010, all of these monoliths started coming off of there. So I don't know.
So maybe that's the parking lot for the monoliths, huh?
I have no idea. All I know is that looks strange.
It does look strange.
And I would not think that was natural. And I'm not going to say that could not have been carved out by water runoff at some point.
Well, it wasn't water.
I don't think so.
Definitely was not water. with
Yeah.
minus 290 degrees.
Yeah.
Might have been methane.
A liquid methane, let's put it that way. It
But,
might work the same way on Titan as water works on the Earth.
Yeah, but I mean, look, they have admitted that the thing is full of rivers and lakes, but they say it's all methane.
All right.
And but these are, in my opinion, these things that we're looking at are constructed. I don't know for what purpose or by whom or how it would even be possible, but they appear to be constructions.
I see what you're saying. And a question I have is, don't they have a lot of ice over lakes? Or is that
The ground itself, the bedrock, if you will, is water ice.
Yeah.
And who knows what's under that? But
We look at another Lake Vostok.
Well, maybe there is water ice there, but it is the bedrock, and over it is this substance that the scientists don't know what that is, and then above, flowing on top of that, is all of these hydrocarbons, methane and all that stuff. So
we could possibly looking at the idea that there is life on Titan, but it exists subterranean.
well, that may be a possibility.
And that may be the reason for the boring machine-looking V thing, or some of this other stuff. We just don't know. It's just pure speculation.
Yeah. And to a degree, it is speculation for me to say these are constructions. And so I'm not saying that. I'm saying, to me, they look like they are constructed.
They appear to be not the same thing as saying they are.
Right.
Yeah. All right, Kevin, I'll let you go so somebody else can call.
Okay. Thanks for the call.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Well, what do you think about it, folks? This is huge mystery here. I know you're used to hearing me talk about stuff on Mars, but, there's stuff all over the place. John Lear, America's most decorated pilot. He's got every certification the FAA offers. He's flown virtually every plane there is to fly. Used to fly secret missions for the CIA. He's a pilot's pilot. John Lear said on this show that there are 40 planets in our solar system, and they don't tell us about all of them. And they're all inhabited, he said. All right, we're going to take a break, and we shall return right after this.
Gary calling from Nebraska. You are listening to The Kevin Smith Show.
You are indeed listening to The Kevin Smith Show, and this is The Kevin Smith. The telephone number is 623-444-5889. If you are outside the USA and you're outside of Canada, you may use the flash message option on my website, kevinsmithshow.com, and communicate with me that way, okay? And or you can call us. But we know it can be expensive to make those international calls. And so we have a flash message option for you. If you're in the USA or Canada, please use the telephone 623-444-5889. Now, perhaps you think that my statements about how life would use the building blocks that are there, and it's unreasonable for us to expect that there would be no life simply because it doesn't have an environment like the one you and I live in. And the one that you and I live in is not the only environment on this planet. It's not even the largest. Think about that. And yet in other environments on this planet, there is life in environments that will kill you. So maybe you think that my premise that life would happen in any environment using the building blocks that are there, maybe you think that premise is nuts. We have a flash message from Deb in the UK, and Deb says she appreciates what I had to say about that, and she's never heard it put that way, but it quite makes sense. Well, thank you, Deb. I appreciate that. Maybe you disagree with me, and you disagree with Deb, and you think I'm nuts. You wouldn't be the first person to tell me that, so you won't hurt my feelings. But grab up some courage, some spine, some backbone, get you some guts, and dial that telephone. 623-444-5889. See, the thing is this, folks. I suspect that the truth is closer to what John Lear has told us than what we have been told by the established scientists, and teachers of science. That's establishment science. I suspect that it's closer to what John Lear has told us. Your teachers of science, those who taught you all the things that make you feel comfortable that you know something about science, can only teach up to the limit of their own ignorance. When they hit the limit, across that line, they know a few things, and then across that line is complete ignorance. Well, that's a self-evident fact. That's true of any teacher of any subject. You can only teach what you know. You can't teach what you don't know. The problem is that somewhere along the way in our education system, going right up to PhDs, they forgot that that line exists. And when they get to it, they start putting in fudge factors and guesses and enforcing that as though that's knowledge. It's not knowledge. You get up to the limit of what you really absolutely know, which that's pretty quick. Even if you're Einstein, it's pretty quick. You hit that limit. And then it's the geniuses, the real geniuses, that are smart enough to know what they don't know. They're smart enough to know when they hit that line, and now they're guessing. Einstein was not embarrassed to say so. Tesla was not embarrassed to say so. But these guys today, they've turned it into a religion. And they're crossing that line with guesses and then enforcing that as though that's knowledge. It's not. And there's way more we don't know than there is that we do know. If you take everything that every individual on this planet who has ever lived on this planet, and you take everything that they know and stack it up, compared to what there is yet to know, that's a pinhead. We're just not really as smart as we think we are. We like to think we're pretty brilliant people. But the most brilliant of us hits that line of ignorance pretty quick. There's way more that we don't know. However, if you take the Earth as an example, and you look at all the different environments that happen right here on this planet, it should tell you that life really can happen anywhere. I saw a scientist on television talking about the search for life out there, you know, on the other planets and stars, star systems and stuff. And he said, every bit of life that we know anything about requires water. That's not true. That is simply not true. There's life on this planet that will die if you expose it to water because that has oxygen in it. They can't stand oxygen. They live in hydrocarbons. They can't stand oxygen. And that's right here on Earth. Caller, you're live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Kevin, this is Brent from Wyoming.
Hello, Brent.
I see what you're talking about with the pipe thing. It looks like I agree with Jerome. It looks like a manufacturing facility. I see what you're talking about on the island, and on the for those who don't have the video feed, I would like to kind of just take an attempt at describing the landing strip area.
Okay.
It looks like a how to describe this? Like a ridge line has been shaved off the top and leveled out. It's just too straight and too perfect to be anything but manufactured.
Yeah. Now, I have to agree that with Mike, I mean, this looks like a lot of different things. I mean, in a way, it has the appearance of a gun barrel on a Luger.
Yeah. Also,
if you look at it from the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's not a gun barrel off a Luger. It's way too big for that. But it has that general appearance. There is a very straight, level landing strip looking thing. And that area runs right across the top of it with a circular turnaround area at the end of it, at the left side. But when Mike was describing, you know, this looks like a tunnel boring machine, but it would be huge. I backed off and looked at it, and I said, you know what? It does. It has that appearance, too.
I agree, it does.
Yeah. Especially that left end. That left end has that sort of, looks like one of those tunnel boring bits.
Yeah, and the right end is kind of tapered off, so it would be an expulsion area.
It could be. That may be exactly what that is. But I agree with him, too. This would be one whale of a tunnel boring machine. Because it's at least a half a mile, and it may be more than that.
Yeah, if it's half a mile long, it'd be several hundred feet wide.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, think of it this way. Now, I'm going to zoom back out. Whenever the... let's see, let me find it. Here we go. Whenever I showed this to the airline pilot, and he was talking about that being a landing strip, he was thinking in terms of that being big enough to set his jet down on.
He probably threw 747s or 737s. or DP-10.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he was flying, but that cannot be 200 feet. That's he's looking at that and saying that's big enough, that's long enough. I could set my jet down there.
Yeah, it looks like it's a peninsula sticking off a continental shelf.
Looks like a what?
A spit of land sticking out of a continental shelf or something like that. The edge of a continent.
Yeah, it is sticking out of the edge of it. It looks to me like it was built out there, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a natural extension. Again, I'm going to back off and zoom out. And it doesn't look like a natural extension of that land. It looks like it was built. What do you think about the island, man?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think that part of Rhode Island that kind of sticks out there. It could be something similar to that, but I don't know.
What do you think about this island?
The island, I will say that the thing that kind of looks like a step pyramid looks like a stacked building to me. It could be, like you say, it could be a heating or cooling unit area or something, but I don't know.
Yeah. Nothing about that.
Center or something.
Yeah, nothing about that island to me looks natural.
No, that's manufactured. I don't know.
Did you expect to ever see anything like this on Titan?
Well, considering I've watched the show for a few times, yeah.
Were you around back in 2005 when I did that show?
No, I came in 2006.
Oh, well. So some of this is your first time to see it.
Yeah, but you did do a show on it in, I think it was August or September 2006, so...
Yeah, but I didn't do the island. I've never done the island. So, all right, man. I appreciate the call.
Yep.
All right.
By the way, you've already gone around the bend, Kevin. I'm sorry.
I went around the bend a long time ago and have no plans to ever come back.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
All right. Bye-bye. It's good to have friends, isn't it? I mean, with friends like Brent, you can't miss, right? They'll always tell you the truth. All right, 623-444-5889. Folks, I know I've said this, but I want to underscore this. This is important. This is very, very important for you and me to examine the way we think. If I showed you these photographs and didn't tell you that that's on Titan, I just show you the photograph and I say, look, here's an aerial photograph. You may be able to identify where it is, but the main thing I want you to do is take a look at the photograph and let's zoom in. And what is that? Well, when I zoom in on that left side of the picture, I think you would say, well, that's some kind of pipes sticking up there. And when I zoom in over on the right side, I think you would say, well, that's a landing strip, or that's some kind of constructed, manufactured something sticking out there. Everything about this, if you did not know this is Titan, everything about this, you would say, well, that's manufactured. That's some kind of buildings there. That's some kind of gigantic pipe work there. But the instant, now this is where you and I need to examine the way we think. The instant you know it's Titan, your mind starts trying to tell you it cannot be that stuff. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show. This is Kevin Smith. We're on final approach. We only have a few minutes left in tonight's show, and we're talking about Titan. And, I've presented some ideas that are, as far as establishment science is concerned, as far as the great apes of science are concerned, they're nutty, they're controversial, they're radical, but anything they haven't written a book about is radical to them. I realize that. Nevertheless, I stand flat-footed here and tell you I think it's true. I think it's 100% accurate. I'm not saying I know it is, but I think it is. If I didn't think it was, I wouldn't say it. I think it's 100% accurate. Life happens with the building blocks available to it in its neighborhood. Therefore, life can happen on every planet. Not necessarily that there would be complex life on every planet. I think there's complex life on a number of our planets. But, and I think we have seen evidence here tonight. That's not a planet, it's a moon of Saturn, big enough to be a planet. But I think we've seen evidence tonight that at least somebody, if they're not living there now, apparently has been there and built some stuff. And they would have either had to have had their own means of providing their own environment for them while they're there, or they are methane-based instead of oxygen-based. It's a mystery that you and I breathe oxygen. Do you not realize that oxygen absolutely corrodes hard steel? All our big skyscrapers, if all of us vanished, so there's nobody to do maintenance on these things, our skyscrapers and our big suspension bridges and all that stuff will corrode to rust and dust in just a few years because of oxygen, and you breathe it. That's got to be a mystery to a lot of other beings out there in the universe. How could there be life on a planet that has so much oxygen? How could that be? Well, I realize that what I've talked about is controversial. I realize that. Nevertheless, I think it's 100% accurate. And we'll see. I bet you're going to find out, either you or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren are going to find out I was right on target. We have a flash message from Bart in Australia who wants to know, he says, you keep talking about life forms that here on Earth that cannot live in oxygen. They don't exist. And if they did, you would have told us what they are. They do exist, and they're called anaerobic archaea. They do exist. You go look it up. I did before I spoke. You should have before you spoke. They do exist. Anaerobic archaea are life forms, and they are anaerobic because they're called that because they cannot stand oxygen. And yes, they do exist. So maybe we have a scientist that would like to call in and confirm that. Or you can just go look it up in your Encyclopedia Britannica. Or you can go to Encyclopedia Dumanica, not Dominica, Dumanica, which is the internet. You'll find it there as well. But they are called anaerobic archaea. Life happens, folks, and it's to me a self-evident fact from looking at life all over this earth that it happens using whatever the building blocks are in its neighborhood, in its environment. And if it does it here, why would we imagine, what Kool-Aid have we been drinking that would make us imagine it doesn't happen elsewhere? You got to have drunk a lot of the Kool-Aid to think it wouldn't happen everywhere else. So I stand by what I said. I think that what John Lear said about life being on all the planets, he says they're inhabited, and he talks about them being inhabited by complex life forms. That may or may not be the case. I have no reason to doubt it, but that may or may not be the case. But certainly, I agree that life in some form probably exists on every planet. I don't have any problem with that. Life in some form probably exists on every planet. Even Mercury. You know, Mercury is the planet that's closest to the sun, and they've always told us it's so close that it's just baked, and no life could live there. And within the last month, they have released, NASA has released the information that there is water ice on Mercury. Okay, up at the poles. So if there's water ice, then right at the edge of that water ice, there is a brief region that is somewhat temperate. There has to be a brief region, a buffer zone, or that ice would melt. There's got to be a buffer zone before you get into the scorching heat. And in that buffer zone, you certainly could have life. But folks, you could even have life on the sun. Not you and me. But there could be some kind of life that thrives on that intense heat. We don't know. So if I had a message to scientists this evening, it would be, stop pretending there's not a fence between your knowledge and your guessing. There is. When you're guessing, just say you are, and that's okay with us. But don't give us guesses and tell us it's knowledge, because that turns out really to be Toro Caca. All right, that's going to pretty much do it for this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the show. For those of you who missed our dealing with Titan way back when, now you have been treated to it, and even some new material that I didn't use back then. We live in an interesting universe. We live in interesting times, and things are not like what you've been told. They are not like what we've been told. But they are like what your eyes see, if you just open your mind to let your eyes see. Remember that we are listener supported, folks. We do not play advertisements here and sell you stuff. And the only way we have to pay the bills is if you think this show is worth being here again tomorrow. So we need your donations, and we need you to join our members community. If you don't think it's worth it, don't do it, and we'll go away. It works that way. All right? We're 100% listener supported. We also have, though, absolutely free, something called the K-Files. It's our free weekly newsletter. And if you're not subscribed to that, be sure you do. It's on the website. Just go over to the website, click where it says K-Files. Subscribe. You're going to get an email with a link in it to activate your subscription, and do that too. My friends call me Steel Eye. My enemies do too. You may call me whatever you like. Just keep coming back again and again and again. Until next time, so long, everybody.